Hello, I'm Jonasz Rewiński and you're watching Break the Fake. They make them, we break them, and tell you everything you need to know. On Russian TV, there was a bit of laughter and a heavy sigh. While Trump's special envoy Keith Kellogg was strolling through the center of Kiev, Russian missiles suddenly decided to take a day off. At first, the Kremlin said, well, just a technical pause. And then they accidentally mentioned that Keith Kellogg is in fact the most effective air defense system in the world.
И сейчас самым эффективным комплексом ПВО на Украине является Кит Келлогг. Вы заметите, 4 дня он пребывает в Киеве, в Киев пока ничего не пролетает. Поэтому я думаю, вот если спросит Трампа, где Патриот, он скажет, Келлогг, он же на Украине.
Я к тому, что мы можем до бесконечности хихикать и рассуждать на тему отсутствия единства и думать, что они в глубине души недолюбливают Дональда Трампа и хотели бы ему не подчиниться, но ввиду того, что они подчинятся и оружие будет поставлено, это то самое оружие, которое будет направлено против нас. И еще неизвестно, что случится по истечению ультиматума 3 сентября. В этой связи не самые приятные новости.
The fact that Russia did not launch a single strike on Kiev during Kellogg's visit says more about the state of the Kremlin's courage than any statement Peskov or Zakharova could ever utter. It now seems that there is an unspoken rule over at the Kremlin. If you see an American, shut down all offensive systems immediately. After all, having Keith Kellogg in Kiev is evidently a greater deterrent than any air defense system you can think of. Patriot? THAAD? Oh, it's so last century. Kellogg for the win. Seriously though, Donald Trump said he was giving Putin 50 days to make peace. The Kremlin laughed at first, but then fell silent. Because it seems that everyone has already realized that if there is no peace after 50 days, other deliveries may begin, not only of air defense systems, but also possibly offensive weaponry that would make recent drone havoc in Moscow feel like a walk in the park. If one Kellogg equals 1 day without shelling of Kiev, I guess one could expect Moscow to extend an invitation to the American delegation very soon indeed, once the roles become reversed. Now, Russian propagandists can keep saying that nothing will change, but in reality, they are well aware that changes are already underway. And the funny thing is, they keep saying, oh, Trump cannot frighten us. But what really happens is that they probably realize all of them in Moscow could soon be looking over the shoulder and on the radar screens to see if no explosive surprises are on their way to sensitive military installations around the Russian capital. And honestly, if you were the US president offering peace talks to Russia and instead you would get Putin smirking condescendingly while pummeling civilian areas with Shahed drones over and over again, would you not get triggered in the end? At the Shusha Media Forum, Azerbaijani President Ilham Aliyev made a statement that probably prompted the Kremlin to call Sergei Lavrov back from holidays, him and the rest of their diplomatic corps, but since their opinion matters very little, we should probably call them the collective Lavrov. Sounds good to me. Anyway, for the last 7 months, Russia ignored the tragedy of the Azerbaijani plane that was shot down in December 2024, and every time Baku asks them about it, they would respond by saying, oh, we're still investigating. But since that excuse is as lame as it is transparent, Baku seems to have finally run out of patience. So let's rewind quickly. December 25th, 2024. Instead of gifts under the Christmas tree, Azerbaijan receives a disaster. An Embraer E-190 flying from Baku to Grozny was accidentally shot down by Russian air defense and crashed during an emergency landing in Aktau, Kazakhstan. Almost 40 people were killed, and Moscow still can't decide whether they pushed the wrong button or entered the wrong coordinates, or just thought it was another Ukrainian drone or missile and simply gave up just in case. Also, you might be wondering, how did that airliner get to Kazakhstan if it was shot down over Chechnya? Well, Seems the Russians denied landing requests and kept jamming the plane, hoping it would crash into the Caspian Sea and take all the evidence with it. Again, purely by accident. It is worth noting that Baku is planning an international lawsuit against Russia. They are clearly not fooling around. And remember, this is a major player on the natural resources market, one that has the backing of none other than Turkey, the one country that once took down a Russian military aircraft for airspace violation and totally got away with it. Putin is probably already looking for a section in the Russian constitution on how to shift the blame to NATO if he shoots down the wrong plane again, while also wondering why he keeps losing allies just as fast as he's losing troops in the Donbass. Now, Aliyev made it clear his patience is over and the documents are ready. The airline wants compensation, the relatives of the victims want justice, and Russia, well, I guess it just wants to forget about the whole thing. Yet this is not likely, given how much evidence is out there. When Azerbaijan asked politely why the fuselage of the airliner was riddled with tiny holes ominously like air defense shrapnel, Moscow boldly responded, "It was a flock of birds." Yeah, right. So, no matter how much Moscow wants to hush up the scandal, it seems that the Kremlin will have to admit that even its former friends no longer believe in fairy tales of avian monstrosities with steel-tipped beaks prowling the airspace around Chechnya. Let's be honest here, Russia was pretty much caught red-handed, on camera, like a certain CEO on a Coldplay gig. And like in that case, no amount of epic dodging can change the fact that divorce papers are already in the mail. Russian propaganda has once again outdone itself. Now, the Azerbaijani intelligence services have been given the lead role in a fantastic blockbuster called Enemies Everywhere. According to pro-Kremlin analysts, they allegedly helped the SBU, the Ukrainian intelligence, conduct this special operation known as the Web, during which Ukrainian intelligence once again stole, blew up or hacked something, somewhere, or someone. Yeah, we've seen it all before.
Нашей разведке стало известно, что азербайджанские спецслужбы, задействовав свои диаспоры в России, помогали украинским спецслужбам в проведении диверсионно-террористической операции «Паутина», которая имела целью поражение стратегической авиации ВКС России. Об этом пишет телеграм-канал «Записки ветерана», ссылаясь на свои источники в разведке. Именно азербайджанская диаспора помогала осуществлять логистику и перемещение грузов, используя свои бизнес-возможности и инфраструктуру рынков и складов. Именно поэтому российские спецслужбы сейчас проводят мероприятия по нейтрализации азербайджанских диаспор, которые в буквальном смысле слова являются резидентурой азербайджанских спецслужб, работающих в тесном контакте с украинскими.
According to an anonymous source from the FSB, codename Captain Obviousness probably, Azerbaijan allegedly helped Ukraine weave a network of spies that penetrated even Russian military commissariats. Of course it did. After all, it was Baku's agents who taught the SBU how to steal tanks at the bus station in Bryansk. The Russian media are creating this new sensational scenario. Azerbaijan gave Ukraine information about the routes of Russian special cargo, and now the FSB cannot decide whom to call in court for questioning. The SBU, the Mossad, NASA, or maybe just Google Maps. The Kremlin seems to be convinced that if someone criticizes Russia, it means that they have been recruited via the SBU. If someone has an iPhone, they are a CIA operative, and so on. Yet ultimately, Russia has only itself to blame. After all, Moscow's current specialty seems to be how to lose friends and alienate people. Armenia, Azerbaijan, you name it. But instead of looking at its own mistakes, Moscow prefers to go the Alex Jones route, spinning conspiracy theories left and right. Classic. And with this, we conclude this edition of Break the Fake. Please stay with us here on TVP World for more latest news and updates.